Somewhere along the way, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this practice of radical gratitude relates to change me prayers. Are they flip sides of the same coin? Um, hmm. Yes and no. You know, the thing for look, when I created the book on Change Me Prayers, and I still use Change Me Prayers, you start to have this arsenal of all these different tools, and you start to instinctively know yourself which tool is good for what. And there's no cookbook about that. You start to know from your own psyche. So when I created the Change Me Prayer book, it was because, ironic that we're talking about this, my mother was dying, and I was so overwhelmed with the fact that she was dying that I began to pray to be transformed into somebody who could handle watching her pass, because the current identity of who I saw myself as at that moment in time could not handle it, to the point that I could barely walk in the room where she was dying. I mean, this is the truth. I was so overwhelmed. And I was like, wait, this is crazy. So I began to pray, change me into somebody who can be with her, so I can be present and give her what she needs and not just be lost in whatever terrified child has taken over right now. And those prayers changed me in that moment so that I could show up. So they're very, very powerful in places where you need to be shifted to become big enough to do the next thing. And if anybody hasn't read that book, that's what it's great for. Now, the difficulty sometimes with the changing prayers is sometimes people were using them as a way to spiritual bypass, like to not be with what's happening, like somebody is incredibly sad and they would be like, change me into someone who's happy right now. That wasn't the purpose. So enter radical gratitude, because it just brings you back to the now, that whatever is happening, you're thanking the emotions. So they're all just different tools for different times. And I hope that does that clarify? Does that help? So somebody says, if I was, I mentioned two books on the last call. I mentioned Melody's book about 40 days to miracles. And then I mentioned It's Not Your Money that I wrote, because it will teach you how to do offering and surrender if it's not a practice that you commonly do. So somebody wrote in and they said, what order should I read them? And I would just say, look, your instincts are going to know these things. But one thing I want to say is that for some people, if you read the money book first, you will get this orientation of surrender and offering that's incredibly useful for the way that we're approaching things here. On the other hand, if you're just having a hard time understanding this idea of being grateful for negative emotions, then it would be good to start with Melody's book, because she describes that really well, that part of it. But it does have more of a manifesting lens to it than I do.